session. So for me, this is really the most important session because I want actually something to come productive out of this meeting. So the idea is to see what might be the first steps to try to have some kind of network for Latin America. So first we'll hear from people from the different countries. So Juan Pablo will tell us something about quantum networks in Latin America. So, yep. You want to sit down? Okay. Let me just. Oops.
Can you put this in the next? I will help. Okay. 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 Thank you. And here's a mic. Okay.
Do you want to switch the slides or you want to tell us?
I don't have that many slides. Yep. I think only two.
I can switch them. Just tell
yeah, it's no problem. So the first one is, I think, already visible. So I start?
Yep,
okay. So I did not prepare a long presentation at all, and because I think that the most interesting part of the session will be the discussions and eventually set up some kind of plan for something that would look like a Latin American network for quantum science and technology, or let's see what happens. What I want to say is that a few things. First of all, that as we were talking yesterday with Nathan and others, and today as well, there is a community in Latin America that has very strong connections. People from different countries, and I don't know if I cannot see what is being shown, but I hope you can see what it's a picture that we prepared for one of the meetings that this community has, because the community is formed by people that interact in different ways. One of them is a series of meetings called Quantum Optics. We organized one in 2014 in Argentina, and has been, I will describe a bit that later. And we came with the logo of the Latin American state. So it's a quantum state, supposed to be what you are seeing is a cat with Latin America. And at that point, we created something that remained sort of non-existent, sort of virtual, not even virtual, because we didn't even have virtual meetings of the Latin American Committee for Quantum Optics. Under the name Quantum Optics, we group people working in different areas that maybe have nothing to do with light, so optics. It started as quantum optics. It grew out into more quantum information science, and now there are people working on superconducting circuits and different implementations of quantum 2.0 technologies. And that is the Latin American state. I read in the web page that is already active, is still active, that this Latin American state is the dream, has been the dream of many. There are some that are actively working to prepare it, and hopefully when it is prepared, it will never collapse. But of course, it's still a dream. It's a bit political in the sense of different Latin American countries realize that we have some common interests, and we have to get closer to each other and interact more and solve together our problems that are very much in common. This community of people that are working in quantum science and technology in different Latin American countries, I listed, maybe we can go to the second, different activities that are regularly followed by the community. One of them is this series of meetings, Quantum Optics, that was started informally. All of them are informal in the sense that, informal in some sense, because we are, in general, I don't know if I am a serious person, but there are several serious people involved working in quantum science and technology, such as Luiz, of course, Pablo, and others. So there are formal decisions that are fulfilled. And this series of meetings started in the year 2000 as an idea that Miguel Orzag had and organized it in Chile. And then there were twice organized in Mexico, 2 other times in Chile, 1 in Argentina, 1 in Uruguay, 2 at least in Brazil, and 1 in Colombia. So it's very much delocalized, and every meeting there is a decision of who is going to organize the next one. The next one is going to be next year in 2026 in Mexico, and the main organizer is Rocío Jauregui, and I think so. And it's a big meeting of about 150 people nowadays, with international recognition, but it's focused on Latin American people from Latin America, and there are people that come from outside Latin America, of course, as invited speakers or even as participants. Other experiences of community building activities, the most notable, for me at least, is a series of activities in Brazil, mostly, more importantly, the one Luiz and his group had the main role in organizing this Paraty school in quantum information, Brazilian. The name is Brazilian School on Quantum Information, no? Escola Brasileira de Información Cuántica. In Paraty, every other year. This year in August is going to take place. During the pandemic, everything stopped, of course. And as far as I can say, I was there. We were sharing memories a few minutes ago. The first one, it was in 2007, and it's incredible the way the students that attended that school, that were less than 100, nowadays is maybe more closer to 150 students in Paraty, the Paraty Cultural Center that is in the downtown area, is no longer organized there because it is too small for the crowd, and most people that occupy professors' positions in quantum optics, quantum information, in general, were students in Paraty at some point, and I keep meeting people that remind me of, oh yes, the lectures I gave, or the memories that we have from Paraty. So this is an important event in the sense that, as community building, it has a different style than the previous one. Quantum optics is more of a regular meeting, a scientific meeting that lasts for a week. Paraty is longer, so it's 2 weeks. The students live in rented houses, and they interact a lot between them with the professors of the different courses. So it's more of so the network is created more strongly in those kind of events. And there are others, of course. This institute plays a role. Other activities in Latin America. We organize smaller scale meetings. But what I want to say is, well, I listened with some envy the description of and I know about the status of the Brazilian Quantum Information Initiative, because I was invited to as a member of a panel, international panel that gave some opinion at the beginning in 2023, here in the Roa Pamplona site of the institute. So I know the type of community that you have in Brazil, which is extremely developed in comparison to any other Latin American countries. It's completely different. It's a different order of magnitude, I would say. In Argentina, there was a survey in 2022 and 23 that the former Ministry of Science conducted. At that time, I was Vice Minister of Science of Argentina, and there was a panel that made a report about the status of quantum science and technology and made some recommendations. Roughly the number of people that could be in a generous way. There is this discussion of quantum, first and second quantum revolution, who is doing what, laser physicists and so on. But being not strict, but being closer to trying to put some criterion of selecting people that are doing things related to the second quantum revolution somehow. We counted around 100 people in Argentina doing this type of things, including researchers and people that are doing PhD. And around 10 experimental laboratories and several theoretical groups. And there were some recommendations about improving the situation of the experimental laboratories. There was a call for grants, money allocated. There were about $5 million. And the selection, during the selection community process, I think Luiz played a very relevant role as a member of the international jury. There were 5 members of the jury, all from outside Argentina, and 6 laboratories were chosen to receive an important sum of money that was close to $500,000, $500,000 in equipment, and one was selected as to be created. So there was money for new labs. It was $1.3 million. There were some minor problems. In December 10, 2023, the government changed, and the new government decided to put simply a number that is easy to remember as the money allocated, which is 0, basically. So nothing was done to promote quantum science and technology. There is no Argentinian initiative in quantum science and technology, and the groups are really suffering. Some of them continue working because of the energy of the PIs, such as Christian, and their ability to get money from outside, from international sources, which is available because there are agencies from governments that are not part of Latin America that are willing to promote science and quantum science and technology outside their borders. For the moment, I don't know what is going to happen in the forthcoming years. But in Argentina, basically the situation is very hard. It's very hard for me to imagine a quantum network without any support from official sources in some established institutions in Argentina. Universities, I'm sure they will support it because they have some autonomous degree, which is written in the Constitution, so they will be excited about that, but they will put zero money. But the equivalent of, our CONICET, the Ministry of Science, doesn't exist anymore. It was degraded into a third-level organization with no budget. And so we have very little to offer, even in the formal sense, because we would have to convince people from our government to send someone to participate in this type of discussions or debates. So as long as this network is open for informal membership, we would be very happy to participate, and I think that I speak in the name of the people that work in quantum science and technology in Argentina, if I say so. And the numbers I mentioned. There is very little interaction with the industry at the quantum 2.0, say, level. Although recently there were some talks with big companies, but so far the aversion to risk that Pablo was mentioning is also very much present in Argentina. Among companies that I was talking about, the company that has worldwide, which is the basis in Argentina, it has 30,000 employees. I was estimating that pays maybe $80 million per month in salaries, and when they listen to the suggestion, why don't you hire like a very top quality quantum scientist, young, that is working, for example, now in Microsoft or in Google or in Amazon, not necessarily a hardware-oriented person, but a theoretician, so more in quantum information, inclined for the mathematical perspective, algorithmic perspective, and so on. And there are people of those with this background. It was something that they couldn't digest for the moment. I don't know what's going to happen. So I think I wrote, when I think of a network, I think more of a safety network, because we are falling down. Argentinian science is really falling in a bad way, and we hope we get some safety net before we hit the floor. And having said that, I don't know. I hope I can give some ideas during the debate later. want this?
El collar de la fuerza. Gracias.
El 2025.
Okay, there. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for the organizers to invite me here to talk a bit of what we have been doing in Chile. So last year when we organized the Quantum Optics, we really tried to focus the effort into invite young people from Latin America. We wanted to highlight what young people is doing, the problems that they have, and this is important for us because we want to continue the legacy that Miguel started in 2000, yes, 2000. And the last meeting was in honor of him because it was his birthday, and he was really happy everything that we have been doing. So, so today I wanted to talk a bit of what we have been doing in Chile. The government in Chile has called us like 8 researchers in Chile to try to make a discussion table of how Chile could join this second quantum revolution or quantum 2.0 that Juan Pablo was talking about. And we have been working really close to them, and we are very happy to see that at least the government has some interest in this. So we were also like kind of behind because the government first started to work with AI. This was the main focus, so it's very similar to what someone told us today morning. And now the focus has been in quantum technologies. Okay, so this is the thing. I want to show you a video that might seem, of course, for all of you is very naive maybe, but this is done by the government. So this is politicians that are trying to understand what we are doing and trying to convince the other politicians that we need to invest money in these kind of things in Chile. Chile has, so for you to understand, Chile inversion in science is the 0.4 of the PIB. So it's very little. It's very little, but with that, of course, we are doing the best we can in science. So this is the
El 2025 ha sido declarado el Año Internacional de la Ciencia y las Tecnologías Cuánticas. Y no es casualidad. Estamos entrando en una nueva era donde estas tecnologías transformarán industrias completas, desde la salud hasta la minería. Pero, ¿qué significa realmente esta revolución cuántica? Podemos dividirla en 2 grandes generaciones. La primera generación nos dio herramientas como la resonancia magnética, los láseres y los transitores, todas basadas en principios cuánticos, aunque sin un control directo de los estados cuánticos individuales. Ahora, con la segunda generación, estamos accediendo a una manipulación mucho más precisa de partículas como electrones y fotones. Esto nos permitirá desarrollar computadoras cuánticas capaces de resolver problemas inalcanzables para los sistemas actuales, sensores cuánticos ultra finos y sistemas de comunicación imposibles de hackear. Pero, ¿qué son exactamente estas tecnologías? Por ejemplo, y a diferencia de la computación tradicional, que usa bits que pueden ser 0 o 1, las tecnologías cuánticas aprovechan propiedades únicas de la física cuántica, como la superposición y el entrelazamiento, para procesar información de maneras antes impensadas. Estas tecnologías podrán transformar industrias enteras, desde la salud hasta la minería, generando soluciones innovadoras para problemas complejos y contribuyendo al desarrollo sostenible. En minería, los sensores cuánticos pueden detectar depósitos de minerales bajo tierra sin necesidad de perforaciones extensivas, reduciendo costos y minimizando el impacto ambiental. En medicina, la computación cuántica puede simular moléculas a nivel atómico, acelerando el descubrimiento de nuevos medicamentos y tratamientos contra enfermedades como el cáncer. En el medio ambiente, estas tecnologías permiten mejorar los modelos climáticos para predecir con mayor precisión fenómenos como huracanes, sequías o incendios forestales. En astronomía, permiten modelar la evolución cósmica con una precisión sin precedentes. En el CERN, la cuántica acelera el análisis de datos del Gran Colisionador de Hadrones, facilitando el descubrimiento de nuevas partículas y leyes fundamentales de la física. Sus algoritmos pueden optimizar rutas en tiempo real, reduciendo tiempos de entrega, costos y consumo de combustible. Al analizar múltiples variables simultáneamente, la cuántica permite gestionar mejor el tráfico, las rutas de transporte y la distribución global de mercancías, haciendo los sistemas más eficientes y sostenibles. En Chile, el Ministerio de Ciencia ya comenzó a prepararse. Durante el 2024, se creó una comisión de expertos que entregó un informe con recomendaciones clave. La primera, desarrollar una estrategia nacional en tecnologías cuánticas para no quedarnos atrás en este avance global. Esto permitirá coordinar esfuerzos en investigación, desarrollo y aplicación de estas tecnologías en beneficio del país. Esta dará alineamientos de largo plazo para coordinar esfuerzos en investigación, desarrollo y aplicación de estas tecnologías en beneficio del país. Chile tiene grandes oportunidades en esta materia gracias a las más de 20 instituciones estudiando cuántica a niveles internacionalmente reconocidos y aplicándola incluso en la industria. Las tecnologías cuánticas ya están aquí y Chile tiene la oportunidad de sumarse a esta revolución global.
Ministerio de Ciencia, Tecnología, Conocimiento e Innovación. Gobierno de Chile. Chile avanza contigo.
So we do disagree in some of the application, but this is not the focus. The focus that this is done by the government because they really want to invest and they want to convince their colleagues to try to put some money on this and try. So I think that it's important. What we had been discussing in Chile is what is the price of not participating in this at the end. Because Chile, we cannot build cars there, we are not building computers, but this is something that at some point we could join and trying to do something interesting for the rest of the world. This is something that we had been discussing. So in 2024, we started this commission. So you know, Steve is there. You know, I know that you know Steve and that you love him very much. And so we started on that. In Chile, we have at least like 10 laboratories doing experimental quantum optics from different topics. We have cold atoms where they are not cold yet, but we are advancing. On that, we have all the quantum information in the south in Concepcion, where Steve is. In Santiago, we have experiments with four-way mixing, a squeeze light, generation of no Gaussian light. So we are trying to move forward, but this is more or less the amount of labs that we have, like 10, in different topics. And also we have tried to, from this fundamental science research, there had been some effort into join the industry. So these are 4 companies that are founded in Chile. The first one is my favorite, this is Secure Quantum. Also Steve is one of the owners of the company. And so what they did is they put together 25 years of research in Chile, in this quantum information experimental group that they have, and they develop a little box like this that generates numbers, aleatory random numbers that can auto-certificate in time. So there is a machine, and you say, okay, I want 100 random numbers, and then you can get G2, for instance, to check that this is really a quantum process. And also we have Cordevex. Cordevex is an industry in Chile. They do not create quantum technology as Secure Quantum, but they import some quantum technology and they offer to other like companies in Chile to have quantum solutions to some problems. So they work with the Transbank, with many other fields in Chile. And we have also these 2 that Maki is trying to develop crystals, nonlinear crystals, for instance, with different applications. So they are trying to build that in Chile. And Go Quanto that also has some working on, also in random quantum numbers and stuff like that. So last year in October, we finished this first document that we offered to the government, where we fill 15 recommendations for the country to move forward. This is what we have done. And so you can try to follow the link there. But this is a document that is online. And so we try to focus in different, so there are 15 recommendations, but the focus was really on where to focus, where we put the priorities of this project, of this national project, how we can make a ongoing talking with the industry, with the private sector, and with the academia, because we believe that it has to be a joint effort. It won't happen if just the government wants to. So it needs to have like another momentum pushing this idea. And the other thing that we focused a lot was on how to be smart to invest, in the sense that if we start, for instance, working right now in the quantum computing hardware, we are 25 years with delay in comparison with other nations. So we were trying to think how the problems that has Chile as a country, for example, in mining, agriculture, can be solved or helped by quantum technologies. So this is something that we are trying to talk and discuss with the people involved. And in order to do that, we need to really sit down and see the other part and try to understand where are the problems for them. So, well, this is the 15 recommendations. So you can read them later on the document that I shared, the link in the previous slide. But at the end, this is what we have been doing and focusing on the efforts. And of course, Chile is also trying to talk to the other countries, especially in LATAM, to try to see if it's possible to create this network. Okay, for us, it's important to try to see if this is possible, how we could articulate this. For example, Chile has a lot of fundings for international mobility between LATAM countries and also France and specific countries in Europe and the US. So these are ways to start collaborations, but we want to go further, of course. The idea of this meeting is to try to see if we can articulate something from the academia, and maybe to present, in this case, I can present it to our government and try to see the good of having this network in Latin America and not working by our own, because it could be also a way to isolate for the rest, but I think that it has to be articulated, and I think that it's very interesting to try to see what we could do together that we could not do alone. This is, for me, it's very important to see. So the points that we have presented and promote on the government has very different levels between having a special agency inside a need, that is our CONACET, that just to work and focus just in quantum technologies or possible quantum technologies that can emerge from fundamental science. We also have the same problems as you, or as I understood from today's meetings, that we have a lot of PhD students and master students, and we have no way to absorb them. We don't have positions either in the academia. It's impossible. You have to, kill someone more or less to get a position. So it's very, very hard. And so it is a big problem for us. And we don't have, so I show you 4 enterprises, like startups, right? But of course, they cannot absorb this problem. We are talking about thousands of people. That is very sad. I mean, some of them have even taken away the PhD degrees on their summaries in order to get some job somewhere. Because at the end, people were saying, okay, you have a PhD in physics, you are overqualified. But at the end, you don't have money to pay the bread in your table. So it's a very hard problem. And I think, as also you were discussing today morning, that maybe one solution is from our way of training PhD and master, we could maybe open a side part on focus more on in industry. For example, in Chile, we have been thinking, at least in my university, how I can present, okay, this is a PhD candidate, but he's really good thinking and solving problems. So please, like this enterprise or company, please take him for 2 or 3 months and see what a physicist can do. And try to start this communication with them, because I don't know how is the situation here in Chile, but in Brazil, but in Chile, when you talk to like an enterprise and you tell him, okay, he's a PhD in physics, they don't know what we are capable to do. So we are trying to also we reconnect. So this was like an RX, this exam that examines your body. Okay, this was the same thing, but in the national level. What do we have? What is missing? What are the problems that we are considering the hardest to solve? So it's, again, the same thing that we have discussed here. Priorities, focus, investment. Of course, we need money for this. But also this, how we can absorb these people that are very well trained for us. And of course, and the people that goes away for the PhD or master, how to convince that they have a place if they want to come back and do good science or industry in Chile. So we try to focus in all of these in the document. So right now, what we are doing is that we are writing another document that is called a strategy. So it's like to start choosing between these 15 recommendations and try to put it in a way that we can start making the path to Chile to become a country that can join this global effort in the emergency quantum technology. So I think that, of course, we will discuss way more in the table right now. But I think, I imagine that we could do something very similar in LATAM, like try to see how we could really join efforts, like the quantum optics at some point, but not just in the academia, just to go beyond and to try to involve the governments as well, because and the private sector, because it won't work if we don't work all together. So thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you and to have the opportunity to talk about quantum science and technology in Mexico. I want to give you a brief overview of Mexico's quantum ecosystem and some key advances in quantum technology development. In Mexico, our scientific community is highly engaged in several key areas of quantum science, like foundation of quantum mechanics, quantum optics, cold matter, quantum computing, and quantum cryptography. Our research is primarily supported by CECITI, formerly known as CONACYT, some academic institutions like the National Autonomous University of Mexico, and some minor public funding initiatives. All this support enable both theoretical and experimental efforts across the country. These three major institutions represent Mexico's research quantum ecosystem. First, we have the Quantum Information Division of the Mexican Physical Society, which was established in 2007. This serves as a national platform for researchers, educators, and students. The division promotes research in theory and application of quantum information and fosters outreach and education efforts. Second, we have the Quantum Technology Network, which has 15 laboratories across 17 national institutions and brings together around 70 associated researchers. The network is dedicated to the application of quantum information and strengthened interinstitutional collaboration. Third, we have the National Laboratory for Quantum Matter, which support the theoretical and experimental work on ultra-cold matter and quantum information. The initiative comprises 11 laboratories in the whole country. And these laboratories explore quantum correlation between matter and light. Through joint efforts, these three institutions designed the Mexican Initiative in Quantum Technologies, IMTC. The IMTC is the result of collaborative discussions that began in 2019 and was formally established in 2023. The IMTC defines clear strategic focus areas and aligns the national research capabilities with specific technological goals. It is important to note that each focus area defined in the initiative brings together the expertise of national research teams. Here in this chart, you can see the technology focus areas that has been defined in the national initiative, and on the top, you can see the application target. The specific or the priority technologies Mexico is working to develop are gravimeters and optical sensors for high precision sensing, quantum memories, random number generators, and quantum key distribution for secure communication, and quantum gates and genotype network for advancing quantum computing. But also, we prioritize education. National diploma program in quantum technologies is already in place, ensuring that our human capital grows in step with technological advancement. Unfortunately, only these three projects has received partial funding of around $600,000 on the whole initiative, only these three projects. However, we have some investment during the past decade. Approximately $3 million has been invested to research projects, not associated with the IMTC, but related with quantum. To conclude, in Mexico, quantum science is a dynamic and deeply collaborative field. I can say that we are proud of the strong foundation we have built and the national network we have established. However, we recognize we need to do more, and also it is important that government agencies must place their trust in quantum science and technology and recognize its long-term strategic value for the country. And that's all. Thank you.
Luiz?
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. I have some comments on things that have been discussed today, and also have some slides. I almost gave up showing slides and making the comments, but maybe the slides might be important to put these things into context, at least as far as Brazil goes. I have some in Latin America, but I'm not going to use them because people on Argentina and Chile, but people have already spoken about that. So anyway, so first of all, thank you very much to the organizers for this event. And then we'll discuss later on this networking of Latin America. Now, it's important to notice that this thing, in many cases, started with optics. Okay? Not everybody in quantum technologies or quantum information in Brazil now comes from optics. In fact, there are people in computer science that came to quantum technologies and quantum information in Brazil, but many came from optics. And in optics, there was a strong network. Gustavo was the first author of this paper, and it shows that if you look at the authors of this paper, it's clearly that there was some contact between them, and in fact, there is collaboration in this field. Now, this is optics, lots of classical optics, but also quantum optics, and this book was actually very influential in quantum optics in Brazil and elsewhere, okay, in other countries as well. It is the book by Moisés Nussensweig, Juan Pablo, Introduction to Quantum Optics, and it's a very nice book and a pioneer, actually, in this field as a book. Now, people have already told you about the National Institute for Science and Technology on Quantum Information. I just want to stress one point about it. Of course, we're told that we have 120 principal investigators, of course, PhDs, besides that, 26 institutions and so forth. But it's important to notice something actually curious. It started with this Millennium Institute, which, by the way, Chile has too, okay? In the beginning, this Millennium Institute was partially financed by the World Bank, and it was financed in Chile, in Brazil, and in other countries as well. So it started like that. I was coordinating this Millennium Institute on quantum information, and then it went to this National Institutes for the National Institutes. Now, it's interesting that all the coordinators up to today were theoretical physicists. The first was me, then Amir Caldeira came, then Belita, and now Rodrigo Capaz. And it's interesting also that even in spite of that, nobody's perfect. So in spite of that, practically the full amount of money in this institute throughout these years went to experimental physics, went to build new labs and to strengthen existing labs. Okay? So Zelaket was mentioned by you, right? And as the guy who has the strongest contact. And I have two pictures of his lab, just an empty room, and then the lab, which was thanks to this kind of collaboration. Okay, so, and I think this also answers a question that was raised here: how come Brazil has built these cooperations that you showed in your talk? And I think this institute has helped a lot, okay? Because especially in the beginning, we had these periodic seminars, workshops with people in the institute participating, exchanging ideas and talking about what they are doing. And later on, this became more specific. People were visiting each other, especially the experimental people, and helping each other. The lab, the Quantum Optics Lab at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro was built by Paulo Souto Ribeiro, who was a PhD from Minas Gerais, and Carlos Monken from Minas Gerais came to Rio to help him set up the lab. So people were collaborating to build labs, actually. So that, I think, played a very important role. And if we can think of something that more extensive, that would be great. Even though I do agree with Juan Pablo that there are political questions there, at least from the formal point of view, but maybe informally we can do it. Let's see. I don't know, but we'll discuss this later. I have this here. So in Brazil, we have quantum technology, not 2.0, but 1.0 with lasers. I think Paulo mentioned already this Embrapa project with some agro startup. We use a laser for large-scale and clean soil analysis. There is also a device which was built in Vanderlei Bagnato's book in São Carlos, group in São Carlos, that is for photodynamic therapy. And this is amazing because this is already in the public health system. That's the SUS here. So it's people all over Brazil now can use that, which is an invention, say, from São Carlos. Now, quantum communication also was mentioned. You see that this trajectory from the Fluminense University to the Brazilian Center for Physical Research, which goes over the bay with lasers. Okay? And then you use optical fibers to connect other institutions. There are some examples also, besides those that I have already shown, which are interesting, like, for instance, the nanoscope, invented in the group of Ado Jório. I mentioned that before. He has to pay taxes if they sell this in Brazil. It was, their work was cover of Nature, actually, probing twistonics. So there are lots of things being done, which are very interesting. And we also have huge labs. And our new proposal for this National Institute for Science and Technology in Quantum Information has now the name of National Institute for Science and Technology on Quantum Devices. The Rodrigo Capaz, who is the coordinator, is the director of the Nano Lab in this center. And of course, we still don't know if we are going to get it or not. But anyway, so the reason why Rodrigo Capaz is the coordinator of the Institute is precisely because he's director of the Nano Institute, because we want now to go to this next step of producing devices. And besides that, we also have this Senai Sematec. Senai means that industry is involved on that. They got money from some federal organization, $11 million, to establish a competence center in quantum technologies. That's a very impressive campus because they have researched all sectors of industry in Brazil, including automobiles, health, and so forth. It's a very impressive campus. And in São Paulo also you have technological campi, dealing with many kinds of new technologies. Now, that's what I really would like to stress. This is a recent, actually, these are recent data from the European Center for International Political Economy. And these are data on the investment in several countries, public and private, on quantum technology up to 2024. Okay? And you see that China is leading. Green means public, orange means private. You see that China is the leader because of a strong public investment. Then comes Europe. The United States has mostly a private investment. That's not a surprise. And then we have the other countries like also participating in that. The European data refer to not only this European flagship program, but also to the individual financing of the several countries that are in Europe, okay? So that's the total amount. And another plot which I find interesting is this one. It shows the papers in the top 10% journals measured by the impact factor. And this shows the quantity and quality of quantum technology academic publications by subfield for what they call top 10 countries in this period from 2019 to 2023 as a percentage of the total. So if you look at this table here, you see three great areas: quantum computing, quantum communications, and quantum sensing. Now, look at quantum computing. You see that the green is share of global publications, orange is share of publications in top 10%, okay? So these are the, in principle, more qualified publications. Now you see that the United States, for quantum computing, leads in the share of publications in top 10% of journals. Then comes China, but the United States leads in quantum computing by a good margin. But then when you go to quantum computation, quantum communication, sorry, and quantum sensing, then you see for quantum communications, China leads. And then for quantum sensing, China is still in front of the United States, but not for much, okay? So you see that there are really resolutions about priorities in these countries. Different countries have different priorities, but you see that that's something that I think was commented here already. You see that quantum sensing and quantum communications, except for the United States, they are winning in all those countries, okay? So quantum communication is, I think the United States is centered on that, but on the other fields, even China is centered on other points. They have quantum computation too, but they have priority on that. And that, of course, it's, I should say that people are now benefiting, even when they have strange governments, from the work that people did that in this field many, many years ago. So I'm now showing you, Juan Pablo, I'm showing a picture of you with your group in 2010, okay, in Buenos Aires. Quantum Foundations and Information at Buenos Aires. So it's not by chance that now you have all these people like Christian and many others doing some very nice work in Argentina. Okay, so it started much before. And these are some Brazilian startups. I'll just go fast over that. And this is Chile. Well, some people mentioned that, but I should also mention that in Chile this started a long time ago. They had the first international meeting in quantum optics was held in Santiago, Chile, in August of 2000. And it was organized by my friend Miguel Orzag, who published a very nice book on quantum optics and was one of the organizers. I think there were other people organizing actually, which is nice, younger people, but he was there at Puerto Varas in Chile, and Juan Pablo was there too. So, you know, it doesn't come like that. You must have some building, some construction of this, and I think we should talk about that. Now, about the comments. Okay, so what about this network of Latin American countries? And I would like to say some things about it. First, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, yeah. I see. Oh, I closed that. Yeah, you know, I am a technological danger. You know, when I was in Paris, there in Sergio Rocha's group, when I approached the lab, you know, people started to be very worried about it, and they gave me some lenses to polish, and I broke all of them. And after that, I was doing just theoretical physics. Okay, so then, you know, there are some very nice examples. I was talking with Juan Pablo before, and of cooperation. And some examples that have become internationally known because we have spread them. Also, Juan Pablo, me, whenever we can. During the military dictatorship in Brazil and in Argentina, the military in Brazil are trying to build an atomic bomb. And the military in Argentina also are trying to build an atomic bomb. So the Brazilian Physical Society got together with the Argentinian Physical Society, and they signed a document saying that nobody, member of the Brazilian Physical Society or member of the Argentinian Physical Society, should cooperate on that endeavor, okay? So just that, okay? And that, of course, was a strong force because, you know, without physicists, the situation becomes difficult, okay? So that was a very good example of science for peace. And in this world like it is today, I think there are many other examples, fortunately. There is a particle accelerator in Jordania, for instance, where Israeli scientists work together with Palestinian scientists, if they still exist. Now, we even have some doubt about that, okay? But anyway, unfortunately. So they were working together there. I was Secretary General of TWAS, the World Academy of Sciences, and there you find people from Pakistan and India discussing physics or any other science, biology together. In India and Pakistan, you know, they fight each other. Okay? So science is a tool for peace. The scientific language is a universal language, and we should profit from that. Now, look at Latin America now. Argentina has a problem. You know, remember that sense. Houston, we have a problem. Huh? So Argentina has a problem. Brazil had a problem, and not only during the military dictatorship, because then we both had a problem, but even during the previous government. Okay? So the situation in Latin America is unstable. And because it is unstable, we should think about ways to stabilize or to get more stabilization of science at least. Okay? And one of the ways is to imagine, and you know, I'm not going to give the recipe now because I don't have it, but I think we should think about it. Imagine a way to put these people together, to help those who are in need because of politics. And there are some possibilities. For instance, we have been to KITP in California, Juan, Pablo, and me, and it was an amazing experience, not just because the people there were very nice people, very nice people, and it was very good to drink wine and beer with them, but also the discussions there were amazing. You know, we had there, you know, Ashe Perez, Zurek, Bennett was there. You know, several leaders in this field discussing, and anybody could go into the room and or either participate, or in my case, just listening to the discussions. Okay, at that time I was listening, and I thought it was really fantastic. So now the KITP is actually in several countries, and this institute is a kind of that, right? So, and I even, you know, was there looking for this information, but I'm not sure I'm going to find it now. Oh, yes, it's here. So you see, countries where you can find the Kavli Institute, United States, China, United Kingdom, Norway, Japan, and the Netherlands. Okay? China, including China. Okay? So, Kavli Institutes, you can spend there from some weeks to many months, discussing some theme. Sometimes they have space for 2 themes. When we were there once, there were discussions on biology, and another group was discussing physics. Okay? And that's a nice way to cooperate or to start cooperations, because you stay there. You stay there for 2 months, 3 months. It's not just 1 week or 2 weeks, like Paraty for 2 weeks. It's too little. I mean, it's, you know, you stay there for some months, and then you can discuss things, and then we can discuss things. So I think, you know, that would be one way. I'm just, you know, we have this Brazilian humorist he died years ago. His name is Milo Fernandes, and he had these amazing sentences. And one of them said, free thinking is just thinking. So I'm doing just free thinking now, okay? So just imagining things. So one of them should be something like that, could be something like that. Open to Latin American scientists, but not only to them. Why not? People from the United States, Europe, China coming. And Brazil has a very, I'm talking about Brazil, but there was Chile, Argentina, no, sorry, not now, but Argentina maybe, because that changes. In some years, Brazil might be in that situation. Vai passar. So these countries in Latin America have a big advantage that you know, they can have relationships with the United States, with Europe, and with China at the same time. Okay, and so you know, an institute like that, say in a country like Brazil or some other country, could get everybody together, and that would be great. Okay, that would be great. Now, I'm just talking like that, just to motivate a discussion. And of course, for the moment, it's just a dream. It's a dream. But many things start with a dream. And actually, scientists, I think, dream all the time, awake. They dream while they are awake. They dream about possible solutions to problems that they want to solve and things like that. So it's a dream. But I think that's a possibility, okay, to have this kind of institutions. In France, we have the Les Houches School. But the Les Houches School, there are lectures there that take some time. And that somehow constrains the things. But I'm talking about something like KITP. No lectures, I mean, just interaction. Talks by physicists, with biologists, whatever. You open to that. So that would be a possibility. Now, what about an association of scientists from Latin American countries? That would be, I would say, ideal, but maybe too much in the imaginary axis. That was talking with, with Juan Pablo, because the first parity school, we were organizing it from it was a complex problem. So there was a real axis and an imaginary axis, and we two were in the imaginary axis, and our young colleagues were in the real axis doing the hard work, okay? So I'm now doing a talk in the imaginary axis. So such an association would be nice, but I think we should start with something like I mentioned previously, because the danger of these institutions is that you produce them, and they stay there, and they don't work, okay? And I'm not going to mention some of Latin America because I don't think it's diplomatic, but there are some, which for all America, all Latin America, so what? Maybe you don't even know the names. Okay, so that's the only danger. Okay, I don't like some empty bureaucracy. Okay, that you produce something and so what. However, this thing about having some place to have scientists from all these countries get together with scientists from all the other countries too, China, Europe, United States, I think that would be great. I think that could be great, just to motivate this cooperation. And if we can think even a little bit farther away, but again, my preferred axis is the imaginary axis. Reality is so dull, so bad, so imaginary axis. So in the imaginary axis, we have this National Institute for Science and Technology in Brazil. Very nice institutes. Why not have them also with other countries in Latin America, but with some themes very well determined? That's more complex, I know. But anyway, that's another possibility. We have groups of research collectively financed. And, I was for some time, I still am, counsel of the president of FINEP, which is this Brazilian innovation agency. And I made this suggestion there because, people talk about the Amazon, and you cannot talk about sustainable development of the Amazon without thinking about the Amazon countries. Because, the Amazon is theirs too. So you need some cooperation, but they don't have money. Now, there is some possibility that Brazil pays part of their job. That I learned, okay? So that in the benefit of everybody. So, things to be explored. I think we should do that. I think we should do that. And today, Brazil is in a better situation. Tomorrow, Argentina may be in a better situation. We should have some coordination, some program that tries to have science in these countries survive, okay, with this cooperation between countries. So, sorry, I like to dream, I know that, but, since the theme of this session is this one, I'm just saying this thing. So, and I think we should discuss more in questions and so forth. Okay, thank you.
So before the questions, this dream about KITP almost came true, may even come true still. So FAPESP, I don't know if you remember, but the symposium we had at the beginning of the year, we invited David Gross, who is one of the KITP people, and FAPESP was interested in the idea, and I think they're still interested. So it may actually, of course, not just in quantum, but in all different areas.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about this idea of the KITP that we discussed with Nathan for other themes, not just quantum. Last year was the 12th anniversary that David Gross came to. It was February 2024. And David Gross said that it's getting harder and harder to get people to stay for a long time in Santa Barbara. So the dynamics of science is changing with respect with what it used to be 20 years ago, something like that. And so people tend to stay for shorter periods. Plus, if people are running labs, it's harder for them to leave their labs. So I also like that idea of getting together and without a strict agenda, just to think and do brainstorming and stuff. But it's getting harder and harder. Anyway, there are many other ways of networking in the region. I just wanted to mention one that maybe Rogerio can mention, which is thinking of shared equipment or how to advance with what kind of infrastructure we would like in the region to be able to cooperate better. And there is a very interesting initiative in bioimaging that is funded by the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation. And then there is this initiative that Rogerio is part of, which is mainly focused in high energy physics. That's also an interesting way to liaise. But of course, it would be nice to be able to stay together and discuss, but it's getting harder and harder. And then with this area of quantum science and technology, even though scientific cooperation is a driver for peace, there is also economic interest in this area. And I don't know how open some sectors are to share their knowledge because of that. But that I don't know how to solve.
Maybe Karina, Carla. I don't know if you want to have any comments about it. Do you want to comment about the... Let me get another chair. It's okay. Do you have any comments? Any questions, comments?
So since Silvina mentioned this, I can say a few words about what we have been doing in the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. So first, I'm talking about a specific community of high energy physics, cosmology, and astroparticle physics. That's a very traditional community in Latin America. We started, I don't know, in the 60s maybe, to have schools, etc. And for 30 years now, every 2 years more or less, we have a Latin American symposium on high energy physics. It's called SILAFAI, Simpósio Latino-Americano de Física de Altas Energias, which actually rotates among different countries. And even more recently, we started this effort of making a strategic planning of our community in Latin America, following more or less the example of the United States with the SNOMAS process. And also in Europe, they have the European strategy in particle physics, which is conducted by CERN, in the sense that we call for white papers of the community. We get this white, so this is completely, how to say, community-driven. It's community-driven. And then there's a group of people, it's called preparatory group, that takes a look at white papers and make recommendations. And there's a high-level strategy group that looks at the recommendations and give their opinion about these reports. So we have a physics briefing book, it's called, with all the white papers that were submitted. And then we have something that I find very interesting, which is a landscape of the community in Latin America, meaning in what countries you have people working in what experiment. And because there are many experiments, as you know, in high energy physics, in cosmology, there are lots of observatories in Chile and elsewhere, and many experiments in each of these observatories. And also astroparticle physics, cities. Cherenkov telescope array is being based in South America. There's these plans for the Southern Wide Field Gamma Ray Observatory, etc. So it's a large community, and in one of these strategy plannings, one of the recommendations was to make this community more, how would I say, to have this forum where people can discuss this more often. So the recommendation was to have something more solid. And then we started a Latin American association. This was in 2019. This Latin American Association for High Energy Cosmology and Astroparticle Physics. So it's not an association of countries, it's an association of researchers, even students, so people working in these areas. And we don't charge anything, so this is great, anyone can join. We don't charge anything, so this is terrible because we don't have any money. So what we do is that we go after the funding. We decided, we try to get funding from ICTP-Trieste, which actually got 2 of the network grants. We got money from CLAF, amazingly enough. We got money from CLAF. And it's basically for mobility. And we are always trying to get money. We tried the BID, the Inter-American Bank of Development. We didn't get anything, but we tried. We tried some Canadians. So we try. And once we get some money, we can try to finance mobility. So that's the bottleneck of our community is mobility. In our case. Not only mobility to go to CERN or to Fermilab, but also there are groups in Latin America that are working the same kind of experiments. So like for instance, University of Buenos Aires, there is this Lambda laboratory for dark matter. And they developed these Skipper CCDs. And this is not only in Argentina, but there are many places, many universities that are also interested in this. So we fund mobility. And to go to within Latin America as well. So this is working, I hope. And we're in the process of updating the strategy because it has to be done every 5 years or so. And we have web pages, etc. And we have more or less 600 members, which is a reasonable number of people. So if you're interested, you can ask me more. Sorry if I took too long.
Okay. Can you? Okay, that's good. I was also here when David mentioned this, and as an experimental physics, I'm trying to bridge, because all these ideas, I think David quoted this, that he perceived KITP as the sort of CERN for theoretical physicists, right? And of course we have CERN, and we have perhaps this fusion reactors that are being constructed worldwide that naturally serves as a massive infrastructure for experimental physics. When I try to think of quantum information science, the kind of experiments that you're planning and the kind of shared facility that you need to go forward in the field are not exactly the same, right? We don't foresee like a big ion trap where everyone can go in and do their physics experiments and come back to the lab. So in many frontiers of quantum science technology, I think microfabrication infrastructure is something that is necessary. For example, Carla mentioned Secure, the company that Steve and others are involved. And I know, for example, they are now pushing in using an European foundry to make things on a chip rather than making in free space optics and with fibers. Ion traps, right? There are people working on chips that can handle the ions on a chip surface. And of course, there's photonics, which is the field I work in, where a lot of the fabrication is necessary. So what we've seen lately in Brazil is CNPEM, Luiz showed the picture of the Sirius light source, but CNPEM have been pushing forward, it's the National Center for Energy and Materials Research in Brazil. It's based in Campinas, for those who don't know. And they've been pushing forward a platform they call BRFAB, which would be like a photonics foundry or a semiconductor-ish microfabrication infrastructure. That's not quite a foundry that you outsource devices and they send the chip back to you, but a place where people can go, learn how to use the tools, use them, get their device fabricated, and come back. Every place I visited over the last 10 years that do some relevant quantum science and technology on the forefront of devices rely on such a facility. So I was at a March meeting at Chetan Nayak's talk, for example. He was talking about this Majorana fermions, right? Believe you or not on them, the fact is they are built on semiconductor nanowire on top of a superconducting structure, which is completely made on a fab in Santa Barbara, right? Which is perhaps the place with the largest number of MBE machines in the world. And I support this idea, Luiz, and I think ICTP and also IIT, IIF in Natal, right? Remember Álvaro Ferraz was here in the same meeting, right? And Álvaro was also concerned with some of the points you raised, like, oh, can this be sustainably funded? Can we keep going forever or not? But on the experimental side, I think we need something different, right? If we want to attract experimental physicists together in quantum science and technology, we need something different. And if I can dream, I would dream about having such a facility in Brazil. We don't have yet. We have, at Unicamp, we have something. At the University of São Paulo, we have something. At IPT here in São Paulo, we have something. In Minas Gerais, we have something. In even Rio Grande do Sul, right, we had something on more like a production facility, but we still don't have a place where you can go, get your devices fabricated, go back to your lab, test them, get your student to really learn the challenges involved, and be at the forefront of device research. So that is something that there's still a lot to go before this BIFAB initiative comes true. But I think if it comes true, it's a really good starting point to gather experimental science in this area in Brazil. And of course, getting everyone on board, because of the challenge of these facilities is having users. Aldo Jório is now the director of Braga in Portugal. There's Thiago, recall me the name of the center there. Well, INL, Instituto Ibero National Lab or Nanotechnology Lab, right? INL in Braga is now co-led by Aldo Jório, and you talk to people there, the first thing they say, can you come here to make your devices? So the lack of users is one struggle. So if you had something that is within short flight reach here in Latin America, that would be really great, I think, as a gathering point and supporting point as well, because that's something that not everyone can make it, right, can afford to have these facilities.
Any comments from the...
Yes, so I agree a lot with Gustavo. I think that at the end we have to find a way to start this collaboration, and this is a great idea for us. When I was coming to this trip, I have a problem in my lab because the AOM that we use to lock the laser is broken. I have to send it back to Brimrose in the US. I have to find the paperwork to not be charged twice for the taxes that I are already paid. And so I talked to Raul in São Carlos, and I said, okay, do you have someone in Brazil? Maybe they have an enterprise that builds EOMs, AOMs, so I can just go, buy one, get it back to Chile, and lock the laser, because I cannot move without locking. And at the end, he said to me, no, we don't. We don't have that. And at the end, I think it's related to the same problem, to try to see what are our needs from the experimental physicists, for example, in order to push maybe some startups or enterprises. You see, like this is the microconstruction, microchips or photonica chips or whatever, but this is one. Also, I would say AOMs, EOMs, of course, lasers. I don't know about you, but we buy lasers, but not here in Latam. And we are now trying to build our own lasers in order to save money, because in Chile, if I understood well from today morning discussion, you don't have to pay taxes here when you import it. This is not the situation in Chile, so we lose between 35 and 40% of our funding just in taxes. So it's really hard at the end. So I have one laser working to every experiment that I want to do, And the rest we are trying to build with Pablo Solano in Concepcion to build them from scratch, like printing the thing in the 3D printer and trying to hire some electronical engineering to help us building things. So, but I think that this is a good example and exercise. What do we need that we could develop here in LATAM in order to not buy, for instance, from abroad? I think it's a good starting point.
I agree with Carla, with Gustavo, and all of you, of course. This is about to the possibility to have this network, Latin American network, related with quantum. We know that we do good science, not good science, excellent science. Yeah, we do that. And we know all our strengths and our weakness. That the thing I think we need to do now is to give us the time to establish not only a collaboration in paper, yeah, a collaboration in ideas, in strategies, but effective strategies. For example, I know that our students are the motor of science. Maybe one thing that could function is to create double degree programs, a level of master or PhD degree program between institutions in all of the countries of Latin America where quantum science or quantum technology are working to develop. So this is one of the ideas. On the other hand, we all of know that it's not only to be conscious that we can do good science, we have the idea, maybe we can innovate. But in Mexico, for example, the bottleneck is we have these ideas. We also have the infrastructure because we have good infrastructure in Mexico. I am hearing you about a clean rooms facility, for example. In Mexico, there is a network of clean rooms facility dedicated to fabricate another kind of devices, not specifically for optics or small electronic devices. But the same infrastructure can serve for fabricating devices we need. So we need to communicate to convince the others, politicians, but the private sector. We need to, how can we move forward if our own government don't trust in the technology or don't trust in the capability of this? It's hard because maybe I can arrange to talk with somebody from the private sector, but is going to trust me? There are the things I think we need to think, and we need to start. We need to start with something simple. Maybe this event is that starting that we need. Hopefully, in the few years, maybe the scenario is going to be different.
I have a question by Zoom. Freddie, do you want to unmute yourself, or can you unmute yourself? I don't know if you can hear me. So his question was, is there any way to better position Latin American institutions for financing? What would be the best strategies from the experiences gained in recent years for this? I repeat the question. So,
I couldn't understand the question.
so is there any way to better position Latin American institutions for financing? So I guess he means Latin American institutions in countries which don't have government financing, I guess. What would be the best strategies based on the experience gained in recent years? It's a little bit confusing. Freddie, I don't know.
He said his mic's not working.
Okay. So
The question is what? Could you just repeat? No,
I think he's asking what are the best strategies for institutions, maybe in governments that don't have direct financing, for getting financing.
Let me say one thing, Chef. It's tentative, right? Oh, yeah. So some 1 year ago or 2 years ago, I don't remember. The then president of the Brasilia, or the Rio de Janeiro State Agency, was looking at the possibility of paying fellowships, special fellowships, for foreign visitors, say, to stay there working in some institution for, I don't know, 3 months, maybe during summer vacations or something like that. And he was thinking about the Argentinian scientists. That was Gerson Lima, the president then, and I talked to him, and Vanderlei de Souza talked to him too. I think I wrote to you, actually, in Argentina, and Vanderlei went to Argentina. Vanderlei is from the area of biology. So he went to Argentina. He also talked to people there about this idea. And the thing is that, you know, the president of the state agency was, I mean, he was fired. And then somebody else came into place. And this person, I mean, we had either to start everything again, or I'm not even sure if this person was interested in this. So that, but you see, we got close to it, and I think that shows that we could maybe also try it again, okay? And I know the Vice Minister of Science and Technology position you had in Argentina, here in Brazil, we talked to him also about this possibility, and he was excited about it. But, you know, sometimes things take some time to become real.
At that time, we met with yeah, at that time, when I was in the ministry, we met with the Brazilian ministry, and but we didn't have time to formalize anything. And I think that one of the weaknesses is that Mercosur, which is, well, many Latin American countries, not all, are part of Mercosur. It has no scientific side, no? As opposed to what happens with the European Union. It doesn't have there is no science agreement, apart from the one Luiz was mentioning, the nuclear agreement between Argentina and Brazil that did not end at the level of the two societies signing a document, like the Brazilian Physical Society and the Argentinian Physical Society, but it ended with the two presidents, José Sarney and Raúl Alfonsín, signing a treaty where they established a monitoring of both countries to the nuclear facilities of the others. That is still in place, and is one of the examples that ended up transforming Latin America, at least Brazil and Argentina, into a nuclear weapons-free zone, which was a danger of not, a real danger of that not happening, no? Because there was well, there are historians debating about how serious was the plan in Argentina to build a bomb and how serious was the plan in Brazil, but there was clear effort. A military dictatorship in Argentina, a month before leaving power, they announced that they achieved the enrichment of uranium 1 month before leaving power, and that was after the Malvinas War. So it was clear an effort aimed at some military type of applications. So what the society, the societies did was very important, historically very important. And I think that trying to get Mercosur involved somehow in science, it is an idea. I think I don't know how successful it will be. Argentina now is kind of not paying attention to Mercosur. Sorry? Yeah. The government is planning to leave the World Health Organization, and this type of things is planning to do, and completely anti-science. So I don't know what can we do from the official perspective in Argentina. One comment about the KITP, we were both there, and the K is for Kavli, the rich guy that puts the money, or starting putting the money somehow in the, I don't know when, but it was in the late 90s. The first time we were there in 96, there was no K. But there was a T, which is Institute of Theoretical Physics. So from the very beginning, I think it was recognized that experimental physicists are reluctant to leave the lab for longer periods, and it was a place to unite somehow theoreticians of different areas. At the beginning, it was mostly high energy in ITP, but then it moved into other areas. I remember the first meeting I was there in quantum information, it was 96, and then we were together again with Luiz in 2001, and there were mostly theorists, and the experimentalists that participated were from the area, like Jeff Kimball and from Caltech, and people that were coming and going, and then the ones that participated in the workshops. That so these longer programs have 1 or 2 week workshop, and then there is lots of experimentalists that come there for 2 or eventually 3 weeks, but not many. No, I remember Serge was there in the first workshop, but I was trying to remember the names of the people that participated in these workshops for long periods, and most of them are theoreticians. That's part of the reality. And I think that the facilities, the joint facilities for experimentalists to work in there are very, very important, and I think they should be essential. I mean, what the synchrotron in Campinas is an example of it's a facility that was built in Brazil with a extremely, I think it was a marvelous policy at that time, deciding to build the Laboratorio Nacional de Luz Synchrotron. It's used by people from all over Latin America, but if you have a manufacturing facility in some place in Brazil or in any other country, people will go there, build their samples, and go back to their places. It's not going to be a place where they will stay for 2 months to interact or create some kind of community. It's going to be different. It's different. It's a manufacturing facility which is open to everybody. It's very good, but it's a different. It has a different impact.
You wanted to say something before, Luiz? I saw you moving.
Just very short. This is just to tell you that there is a network of innovation agencies in Latin America. Okay? It's called RELI. It's I don't remember what it means. Innovation agencies. Yeah, it's RELI. It's a Latin American network of innovation agencies. Okay? And that was created and supported by the Inter-American Development Bank. Okay? They let these people, I mean, they finance it, and these agencies get together independently of the bank. I mean, the bank does not give, rules for that. And they discuss cooperation on innovation between these countries. So it's good to know, because it also depends on the pressure each of us can make in one's own country on these agencies. Of course, it depends on the situation of democracy in that country, but it's possible to try something. And in fact, I have been in FINEP lately, but not forever, certainly. I have given some suggestions, for instance, to deal with the Amazon countries, to motivate research and also sustainable use of the biodiversity in the region. Okay? That would be a common project for these agencies. So there is this possibility too. I know Chile has some agency there. Not all countries have. Colombia, I think, has it too. Mexico should have it. So there is a chance, and I think Argentina has it too. Yeah. So that should be a way also to get, at least alliance or cooperation in the innovation sector, which has to do with startups.
So I think that thinking of different ways to connect or to emphasize the connection that we have as being proposed here is very nice. I actually would like to highlight the role that this institute has been taking in the last years with the two courses that they've been regularly holding for the last 2-3 years, which is the one on quantum computing and the one on more quantum optics or light matter interaction. And I think that if something that we've learned, that at least I've learned while I was studying and growing up and going to the conferences in Paraty and to the quantum optics, is that you start building connections through personal relationships, and you start building social and political networks also through them. And it's good if we can sustain them. And one thing that I think that is somehow present and has somehow to do with this long-term stays, that I think from different countries they have been trying to promote this in different ways, but somehow our aim is a little bit more outside of Latin America, is this kind of something that I know in Brazil is called sandwich doctor, so that you are meant to go for some months of your PhD or a year of your PhD to some other lab. And I understand from what I've seen that mostly Brazilians end up going to Europe or to the US. But it would be good if we start to look at these kind of things and these kind of interactions. There was actually a call from the Brazilian government at the end of last year or so for Latin American collaborations in this kind of respects, of Brazilians traveling to Argentina and Brazilians receiving, or Argentinians. So I was working with people in Sao Carlos to build up one of this. That's why I say Brazil and Argentina, but it was Brazil and other Latin American countries. And if such a place like this could help to catalyze these kind of interactions and this kind of availability of projects or this kind of longer term interactions, which I understand. So as you recognize, Silvina, it's more and more difficult to do longer stays when you're more at the management level or more at the professor level, but it's still possible. So I think it's still something, and it's definitely something very vivid at the PhD level, and I think that's something we could nurture. So that's one thing I've been seeing, and I wanted to point out. There's another thing a little bit different, but that's in the back of my mind, and what you said, Luiz, during the end of your talk made me want to speak it out, which is, on top of these dreams, I also have nightmares. And I think all of us here together love quantum physics, but I'm also a little bit afraid. I know we're not going to build something as destructive as a nuclear bomb with quantum physics, but I understand there's something icky with what's going on with quantum physics and the promotion of quantum physics and the super hype around quantum physics. We've been speaking about that. I don't know exactly what it is. It is so we're not going to sign a, we will not sell ourselves for fake quantum computer or whatever. But I think there's a question here I don't know exactly how to pose, that I think there's something with the way we build communities, the way startups are built, the way investments are done, which is penetrating into quantum physics, the same way it was penetrating into nuclear physics. It's like, okay, there's this huge temptation of money or or power to build this bomb. Now, it's not a bomb that you are to build, but it still seems like the same kind of mechanism, an external thing that's coming into this more, let's call it pure, and of course, we all like to look at applications, and we like to see our thinking and development come to applications, but there's something that seems to be severely rotten around the quantum razzle-dazzle. And I'm afraid about it. I don't know how to handle it. I just need to say it out loud. And probably you can say something about it.
Let me just say one thing that we want to do here is, at least the minimum we can do is start a web page with a mailing list. And then people, for example, that have positions available can advertise them on the web page, so at least the communities can talk to each other through the web page. So that, I think, is the minimum. Organizing activities, of course, we're happy to invite more and more proposals for activities. And if we get money from FAPES for this KITP thing, we're happy to do that and see if we can get people to come for more than 2 or 3 weeks. I think that's a big challenge. So those are things we can, at least the web page and mailing list, we'll try to get started. So Gustavo already has a web page which is almost finished. And Silvina helped to organize one for biological physics, which you can use the same scheme for the mailing list. So I would think within a few weeks we should have that online. So, and Dario will volunteer. So one thing we don't have is experimentalists here at this Institute for Theoretical Physics. But of course, they're nearby, so it's
But in that same way, so Juan Pablo said it, so I think most experimentalists also like theoretical physics and like interacting with theoretical physics, so at some point you have to leave the lab and think about theoretical physics. It's not that theoretical physics is only for theories,
yeah,
and
the
other way around,
students,
or
yeah,
it's also not the other way around either, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that requires really time because, for example, if I attend a talk in the experimental part, I have real problems in understanding like the first 3 slides, and then I give up, and probably the other way around. So that really requires an effort in let's say talking for a long time, attending talks, and trying their best to communicate between the groups. So that I would say probably require massive amount of students that can spend time in understanding the other language and report.
I had the same similar questions.
The nightmare.
Yeah, that quantum has become distorted into something which is not.
Christian's nightmare. Let's see. May I make some comment on that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because in March of this year, there was the opening of the year of quantum science and technology that was in Paris at the headquarters of UNESCO. And this came up, but in a different way, which is interesting. And you see, indeed, there are many people in our community, or maybe some people at least in our community, that I think exaggerate the power of quantum technologies as they are now. Maybe in the future, who knows? Huh? And in this session that I was participating, some people was even explicit. One of them was Sergio Roche, who was in the session, saying, actually I said that too, that some sectors of the scientific community are guilty from the fact that the Department of Commerce of the United States in September of last year declared quantum technologies as a sector that could not be the subject of cooperation with countries that are not partners of the United States. And who are the partners? There was a list. Some European countries, Japan, Australia, and I think South Korea. But no country from Latin America was considered to be partner. So no cooperation on quantum technologies, which includes exporting parts, for instance, for building things, okay? Now, the interesting thing is that in this meeting, this was mentioned, you know, it's related to what you said, that some people have exaggerated the power of quantum technology so much that, you know, people in the Department of Commerce in the United States, or the military also, started to think that this was indeed a very sensitive area of research. So they are blocking it, not just in the United States, in France as well. Okay? Olival was mentioning that today, and I participated in something like that. Actually, a former student of mine, Perla Milman, who is now in Paris, she's professor at the University of Paris, made a plan for cooperating with someone in Brazil. It was Coffee Cube, Capes Coffee Cube. And so they made a project which was on basic science. And it went to the Minister of Education, and then there was a guy who censored it. That means the project was, even though the referees said that the project was excellent, there was a guy there in the Minister of Education who said that you know, it cannot be done because it is a sensitive theme. So, you know, but that's one of the consequences of exaggerating the power of quantum technology as they are now. So I think like that. I mean, now, will they be bad for humanity in the future or not? They could be bad, and they probably will be bad in some sense that other technologies are, in the sense of increasing the divide. Okay? It is true that any new technology now, because of the situation of the world, increases the divide between countries, right? Those who know that with those who don't know, or who have the knowledge, or those who don't have the knowledge. And that's a big problem for humanity, I think, because it's the source of many things, wars and many other things, okay? So I think there is a general danger like that. And that's something that we should worry about. And that's related to the fact that science should be diffused and cooperation should be international. But I realize that maybe that's a very naive statement anyway, so.
Please. Oh.
So one comment about this. I'm old enough to say I was, from the very beginning, involved somehow in quantum information. I don't know, my first paper is from 95. Shor's algorithm is 95 or something. The field has been oversold from the very beginning. No, there's no doubt about that. It's not that now people are being exaggerated. I remember some people, I remember a guy from Australia that is retired now, that was always saying, oh, well, we have 3 qubits in 1 year in some kind of quantum dot array, and that would never, did not happen. The things are changing because now there are these big companies that are building chips that have hundreds of qubits, and this is operating. And so there was some technological breakthroughs that the field has gone through after a very tedious and dedicated work of many people that managed to do that. What is going to happen with the quantum computer? I don't think it's going to change the life of humanity. But we live in a world that, I always give this example. I read in the newspaper the list of 3,500 people that own more than $1,000 million as their own money. Between these 3,500 people, they have 16 millions of millions, 10 to the 12, US dollars, which is more than the GDP of any country except China and the US. And for example, compared to Argentina, they own like 40 times the GDP of Argentina, 40. And you can put them all together in a theater in downtown Buenos Aires, and there is room for more people. 3,500 people. They are the owners of the world. This is the world we live in. It's completely unequal, uneven, unstable. We cannot, I think that the world cannot stand a society like this. And these are the people that will control what is done with quantum technologies. No doubt about that. We are part of the world. It's not, science is not something that is done in the abstract world. You can discuss about the bomb later, because there was a war and many good people decided that it was a just thing to do, that it was the right thing to do. And there were many brilliant people that got involved in the work of making a weapon that ended up changing the world, killing a lot of people, but that's a different story. But the people that will own what we do in quantum science and technology are the 3,500. Maybe some other ones, because with $100 million, I would be happy, because these people are more than $1,000 million. What can we say?
I just want to add on that, because I think that is why this meeting is so important. Because if LATAM does nothing to join this global effort of quantum technologies, then you won't have a seat on that table discussing ethics. That's the important thing. So at the end, we can worry and have nightmares of what these rich people will do, and we know what they are capable of. But at the end, the only way to have a seat on the table is to invest, either as a isolated country or as a LATAM, but that's the only way of getting, that I see, to get really involved with these other people making decisions for us. So I really hope that this meeting will not just be about sharing this idea and nightmares and dreams, but really to put something on the table, like the web page or something that can really promote mobility or whatever we need. But in my opinion, it should be focusing on quantum technologies and not just in fundamental science. This is, of course, is a personal opinion, but I think that we have other means of cooperative science from the fundamental point of view. We could have more, yes, we could have more money also all the time, very welcome. But I think that the inflection point now is to try to invest in quantum technology. And then we should be also smart enough to see where we should invest, why, and how LATAM can be like one of the protagonists of this and offer something that they cannot do, or maybe they can, but they don't know that there is a problem, for example, in mining, agriculture, or whatever. So this is something that I think is very important of this meeting.
So Carla, let me agree with what you've just said. Let me come a little bit back to what Luiz mentioned about export control and France, for instance, not forbidding interaction in certain areas. They consider robotics, they consider anything having to do with drones to be sensitive, and they do not allow collaboration along those lines. Also, the US, the list is probably a list of allies, not really partners. And this is something that I've been trying to make the point in different forums, that Brazil, for instance, has a diplomatic tradition of not really forming alliances, but making partnerships, in the sense that we are not unconditionally committed to certain partners. We are looking for mutual benefit, and we want to remain open to discuss and to interact with everybody. This is one of the reasons why I've been making the point that in Latin America we need to step up our concerns for research safeguarding. This is something that we started at the University of São Paulo, and I am firmly convinced that international collaboration going forward will go through such organizations, such structures to make us reliable partners. And it's something that we can discuss with partners such as France, with whom we have very long-term collaboration, long-term history in Brazil, and in the rest of Latin America. Second, what was mentioned in terms of the stability in the region, the fact that there are no wars, no nuclear weapons in the region is something that, even taking into account alleged dual uses of quantum technologies, makes the region very interesting in terms of investment. So these are points that we have to single out. Now, I can't resist making another comment, because Christian spoke of nightmares, and we are at a meeting for quantum science and technology, and now we're going to get into dreams and things like that. So I wanted to make a comment because it was made at the first quantum optics conference in the year 2000. My father was there, and he made a comment about one of the first meetings in Rochester, the famous series on quantum optics, coherence and quantum optics. And at the time of that meeting, one of the very exciting things in the field, the birth of quantum electrodynamics, cavity quantum electrodynamics, was modified spontaneous emission. So apparently the dean of the University of Rochester, went to host the people at the dinner, and he was a psychologist, and he said, well, what am I going to speak to all these quantum physicists about? Because, I'm a psychologist. So he looked at the abstracts, and he said, oh, I felt a lot more comfortable when I saw that one of the topics that was being discussed at this meeting was spontaneous emission in front of a mirror.
I just wanted to give an example of this new policy of the US. The International Union of Pure and Applied Physics has an yearly conference on computational physics. This year it was going to be organized in the US, organized by people from Oak Ridge, and they got the approval by DOE kind of late, and they said that since one of the themes of computational physics was quantum computing, that all the people attending the conference had to go through the clearance that is needed to visit the lab, Oak Ridge. And so they couldn't do it on time, and they are going to have the conference online. But they have a warning on their website saying, this is open stuff, we are not going to discuss proprietary, but it's becoming very sensitive. And I remember that at the inauguration of the International Year of Quantum, lots of people were saying, let us try that our field in our field it doesn't happen the same that happened with artificial intelligence, that is controlled by a few huge players in the world. Let us try that not to happen in quantum science and technology. I don't know if we are still on time, but it's becoming very complicated, yeah.
Okay, so we're already over time, which is good because there are lots of questions. But maybe if there's some final comments from the panel, do you have any?
Only that we need concrete action. Start now.
Okay, so let's thank everybody for all their participation. So I guess we'll have a mailing list soon, so at least people can keep in touch using that.